Hello everyone, welcome to the session on understanding the GMAT algorithm. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon based on wherever you are. So before I proceed, I would like to know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. All right, so please let me know in the comments if you are able to hear me loud and clear. In the meantime, let me make a special announcement. If you subscribe to the GMAT Club YouTube channel, this is basically the channel that you are on by clicking on the subscribe link. GMAT Club is right now offering a 7-day access to GMAT Club test for all the subscribers. So do make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed so already. All right, great. So I can see that you guys can hear me loud and clear. All right, so let me get started. So welcome everyone to this session on understanding the GMAT algorithm. In the session, what we are gonna do is we are going to talk about what the GMAT adaptive algorithm actually tests you on, how it works, and we will understand how can you strategize your preparation to make sure that you get the maximum out from the algorithm, because that's something which a lot of students do not do. They do not understand the algorithm, they do not strategize their prep according to that, and in the end they realize that they have missed out on a few things. So that is going to be the main focus of the webinar today. I'm Piyush and I'm a strategy expert at GMAT Wiz. I have 8 years of experience of mentoring students to prepare for GMAT and get into their dream B schools. I have helped thousands of students get into top universities across the globe and help them get their dream GMAT scores. Okay, so I am going to talk about everything from my experience. Again, remember a very important disclaimer here: none of the data points which I'm going to tell you is basically revealed by GMAT, because GMAT adaptive algorithm is a secret. They don't reveal a lot of details around it. So all the details that I'm going to share in the webinar is based on my own research of more than 5-6 years on the algorithm, looking at the ESR reports and taking the GMAT myself. So it is going to be a mix of all the experiences that I have in the past. All right, so with that, let me get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about very quickly what is going to be the structure of this webinar. So to start off, for warm-up, I would take you through a case in point to help you understand why do we need to actually understand the algorithm. Okay, what is the need exactly? Because unless you understand the need for it, you may not even realize that it is how critical it is in your preparation. Okay, then we will deep dive into how the adaptive algorithm works. We'll take up some examples, we'll deep dive into it, we'll understand the various aspects of it, which will lead us to the third stage, where we will look at how you should be prepared, how you should change your GMAT preparation strategy so that you can nail an adaptive test like GMAT. Okay, so this is going to be a really important part, really enlightening part of the session today. Then we will move to the test taking strategy. After understanding what is the right strategy for preparing, we will move to the test taking strategy for quant and verbal. We'll talk about both of them. Okay, and finally we will have an open-ended Q&A session. Okay, so that is going to be the last part of the webinar. I'll answer your questions live. Okay, so I have a question from Minhaz. I'm not able to listen anything. Minhaz, I think I asked for a few people, so my voice is loud and clear. If anyone else is facing problems with the voice, please write in the comments so that I get to know that. But I think that the voice is clear from my side. Okay, so before I get to the case in point, I'll quickly run you through what GMAT Wiz is. Okay, very quick introduction about GMAT Wiz. So we are world's only truly personalized GMAT preparation course. So we are a new age company which believes in the idea of leveraging technology with the right content to deliver a truly personalized and adaptive GMAT learning experience. So what we do is we basically provide you with a very personalized GMAT study plan, which comes with real-time improvement modules. And unlike any other online course, in this online course, you're going to work with dedicated mentors who will help you throughout your journey for the preparation. Okay, so very quick introduction about us. You can always visit our website at GMAT Wiz. Now I'm going to quickly move over to the case in point. Okay, and I want all of your attention over here. Thank you, Nagarajan, for confirming that there is no issue with my voice. Really good, happy to know that. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna take a case in point, and this is the exact same scenario which happened with me on the test day. Okay, and I'm going to take the case from the verbal section of the GMAT. So when I was nearing the end of my verbal section, Okay, I had attempted around 22 questions by then, and I was left with 14 questions. And when I looked at the watch, I found that there were only 19 minutes left on the clock. Okay, so that was a situation. I was really under time pressure. I was running short on time, and to my surprise, I got a RC passage. I spent some 15-20 seconds reading it, and it was some passage based on American history about some nurses and all. It was really, really convoluted. It's really weird. It was not in my interest area at all. Okay, it was a very convoluted passage, and I was really short on time. So I was faced with this conundrum that what should I do? How should I approach it now? Okay, so I had few possible choices in front of me, and I want you to imagine yourself in this situation. You have 14 questions left, 19 minutes with you, and you have a very difficult, convoluted, weird RC passage in front of you. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the three choices that I had, and I want to hear from you. Remember, this is an interactive webinar. I want to hear from you. If you were in my position, what is the decision that probably you are going to take? Okay, so there were three choices that I had. The first choice was that I just skim through the passage. Okay, skip some of the questions. Finally, just take one or two questions which are easy, and probably do them half-heartedly. Try to save time for the last 10 questions. The second choice that I had was I do this RC really well. Okay, I do this really well. Try to get them right, even if it requires a lot of time. I do it right, and then I do the last 10 questions selectively. I pick some questions from them and do them selectively. The third choice that I had was to skip the passage and focus on getting the last 10 questions right, because it is important to complete the test as well. So I might as well skip the passage, okay, and just focus on the last 10 questions. So these were the three choices which I had, and that was a really pressure situation, a tense situation that I had to decide among these three options. What will you do if you were in a similar situation? Okay, I have some comments. Varun says I will do them completely. Okay, good point, Varun. Nagarajan says I will probably go for option A, which is I'll skip some questions, maybe selectively do them or do them half-heartedly. Okay, any other viewpoints, guys? Anyone else wants to share their experiences? Okay, a lot of people say talking about A. Dexter also says I'll go for A. Divyanshu also goes for A. One taker for C. Sahil also goes for C. Few people are also saying I should take the second option, which is like do them properly. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I did, but I'm going to talk about the rationale behind it, because it's more important for you to understand the rationale to understand how the algorithm really works. Okay, so at that point of time, this is how I thought. I thought if I go for skipping some of the questions or doing them half-heartedly, what is the impact that is going to be there? Okay, see, from 1 to 22, from question number 1 to question number 22, I should have definitely done really well. Okay, how do I know that? Because I was faced with a difficult RC passage. It was weird, it was convoluted, it was lengthy. It has all the trademarks of a difficult RC passage in it. What does it mean? It simply means one simple thing, that the questions that I have done before it, I have probably done really well on those questions. What it means is this particular question, this particular set of questions, maybe 3 or 4 questions that I'm going to get, are going to be really high value questions. They are going to be really high value. Their weight is going to be very, very high. Okay. Now, if I try to skip some of them, Abhijay, I'm going to talk about that. I'll keep it for a moment that how much I scored, but I'm going to talk about that. Don't worry about it. So what I thought was, if I get this 4 questions wrong, okay, or I skip some of them, I'm getting high value questions wrong. So all the effort that I put in till the question number 22 will probably go waste just because of a decision that I took on this passage. I might as well screw up every single thing that I did for the last 50 minutes. Okay. So I thought that this is probably a wrong thing. And the worst part is not just these questions. If I get them wrong, the questions that I will get towards the end, the last 10 questions, will be of a lower value. Okay. So even if I get them right, even if I get a good accuracy over there in those 10 questions, I'm going to get a high accuracy on slightly lower valued questions. So my prediction was, had I gone for this approach, my verbal score would have been somewhere in the range of 36 to 39. Okay, again, this is a prediction because I did not go for this approach, but from my understanding, this could have been my verbal score. Okay, Arun, I will take your question for sure. Just hold on for that in a moment. So that is why I did not go for option A. In fact, option C is even worse than option A, in my opinion, because it actually leads to more lower valued questions later on. I went for option B. I thought that let me get this passage right, come what may, whatever happens, I'm going to get it right. And trust me, guys, this is a true scenario which happened with me. I spent 5 or maybe 6 minutes just to read the passage in one go. Okay, make sure that I understand the passage in the first go itself so that I don't have to refer back to the passage again and again and again and again. I made sure that I understood it really, really well, and I took around 3 or 4 minutes solving the rest of the 4 questions which were there. What happened was high value questions right, and not only that, the next 10 questions that I got were of even higher value, and for the last 10 questions I was a little more selective. So Nagarajan, we can do questions alternative, you can do alternate questions, but probably this part is not the right part to do that. You should try to hold on to that thing, that strategy, as far away as possible in the test, as later as possible in the test probably. Okay, so I focused on that strategy in the last 10 minutes, which is the last 10 questions. So what I did was I just solved 6 questions in those 10 minutes by focusing on the questions which I was more comfortable with. And in the end, my verbal score was a V41. Okay, I ended up with a 740 on the GMAT, and I was really happy and thankful about the decision that I took. Okay, so I'll take up the question which was asked by Arun and Minhas as a similar question. How do I evaluate the difficulty level of a question? All right, so basically, if to evaluate the difficulty level, the easiest thing is to look at the language, to understand, try and understand things. If it is very convoluted and the questions have choices which are very close, you will get to know that it's a hard question. If you have really prepared well for the GMAT, you will get to know it's a hard question. Okay, then there are some questions like boldface and all, which are trademarks for hard questions that you're doing well. But generally speaking, if it is a tough question, you have prepared well, you will get to know that. Okay, so I have a few more questions about the optimal time for allotment and everything. Nagarajan, please hold on to that. I'm going to come to it definitely. Okay, this is just the starting. My objective here was to help you understand that if I was not aware of the algorithm, if I was not aware of how the algorithm works, and I chose option A instead of option B, if I had skipped some of the questions, or if I have skipped the passage altogether, I would have ended up with a much lower GMAT score, probably with a 700, 710 or something like that. Okay, but just one good decision help me to actually reach the right score that I wanted to reach. Okay, and obviously there are a lot of things which I have taken into account here, that I am good at RC, and there are so many assumptions which are there. I am going to talk about all of that. Don't worry about it. Okay, but what you need to understand is understanding the algorithm is really, really important. Okay, so Devanshu, you are right. I spent more time on that RC passage. I spent 9 minutes on that passage completely, 4 questions, and I was selective in the last 10 questions. I just took, did 6 of them by looking at my comfort level. Okay, so let me now go to the a simpler example. I'll try and explain with a very simple example about to help you understand the GMAT algorithm. All right, so this is a very simple use case. Again, it is for those people who are not aware of the algorithm, because I see some of the comments which make me feel that some of you are not really aware about how the algorithm really works. So let me take a very simple example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 2 students. Generally, when you start your GMAT test, everyone gets a medium difficulty level question, mostly. That's where the test starts from. So let's assume that student 1, he's one of the students who started his GMAT, and the first question that he got was a medium question. He got it right. So what the algorithm does is it basically increases the difficulty level. The adaptive algorithm basically means that it increases the difficulty level for every single question if you basically do basis on how you have done in the questions that you have attempted before it. Okay, so I'm not going to answer some of the questions which are there in the comments right now. I'll answer them later. Let me explain this part to you. So what happens with this student is the student gets a medium hard question as question number 2, which he gets right, and then he gets a hard question as question number 3, which he also gets right. So the question difficulty level stays at a similar level. The question number 4 was wrong, and question number 5 was also incorrect. Okay, so now can you tell me, can you guys calculate the score of the student based on the questions that he got right? On the y-axis, I have written the approximate points. These are hypothetical numbers that I have given to help you understand the algorithm. These numbers are not revealed by GMAT at all. Okay, so can you tell me what is the score of this student on these 5 questions? Okay, I want you to now tell me what is the score. Simple math, guys. Just want to make sure all of you are understanding this really well. What is the score of this student? What do you think? Okay, I'm not talking about 600, 650. Look at the scores. Okay, let me make it easy for you guys. Look at the questions that he got right. Okay, look at these 3 questions. Good, Minhas. Good, Paul. Yeah, good point. So he got 3 points, 4 points, and 5 points in the first 3 questions, and that's why his total score is 12 points. Okay, and his accuracy is around 60%. Okay, so this is a hypothetical scenario again. GMAT does not adapt after every question. It probably adapts after a block of 3 or 4 questions. But I just want to make it easy for you to understand. That's why I've taken a simpler use case. All right. Now let's take another student. This student also starts at a medium level, but he gets the first question wrong. So he gets an easy medium question as the next question, which he gets wrong. So he gets an easy question as the next one, which he gets right because probably he has the skill of getting it right. And then he gets a question which is easy medium, gets it right. And final question also he gets right. Now, if you look at his score is just 6 points. All right. His score is just 6 points. And surprisingly, his accuracy is same as the accuracy of the first student. Okay. It's same. Both of them have 60% accuracy, but you look at the difference in the scores. Okay. Even though it's a hypothetical scenario, this is how GMAT algorithm tests you. This is how GMAT algorithm evaluates you on. Now, why am I bringing this? Why am I talking about all this? Because I have seen students worry about accuracy a lot. In fact, I have heard from students so many times that when I solve the OG questions, I get 80% of them right. I get 70% of them right. But when I take the mocks, my score is really, really low. What do? I don't understand why is it happening. And I'm sure a lot of you who are there in the session right now would have faced this question or would have thought of the same yourself as a student. Okay, I'm not asking you a yes or no, did you face it or not, but I'm sure you would have thought of it once or sometime, because that's something which students do. They focus a lot on accuracy. But honestly speaking, accuracy is not the right metric to look at on the GMAT. Okay, it's not the right metric. And let me take a real case study now. Let me take a case study of one of the students whom I worked with earlier. So this ESR report is the report of that particular student's verbal section performance. Okay, so I'll take a minute to basically help you understand how to read the report. Okay, so what it does is the report tells you the accuracy of the student in 4 quarters. Okay, this is the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. The first quarter has basically 8 questions. The second quarter has 7 questions. The third 7 also has, last quarter has 8 questions. Okay, so there are altogether 30 questions which are scored on GMAT verbal section out of the 36. There are 6 questions which are unscored. They're experimental in nature. Okay, I'm not sure if you knew this, so that's why I'm adding this point over here. So this is a ESR report that shows his accuracies. So how do I read it? So what I understand from this is this student got 50% out of the 8 questions right, basically, which means he made 4 mistakes in the first quarter. Okay, Sahil has a question. What does a quarter mean? Can you explain the graph in detail? So Sahil, think of it this way. There are 36 questions on GMAT verbal. Okay, so basically every single quarter is 1/4 of the test. Okay, but it is not consisting of 9 questions each. Okay, first quarter consists of 8 questions, second quarter consists of 7, third quarter 7, and last quarter 8. Total 30 questions are scored questions, and there are 6 questions which are experimental in nature. Okay, Minhaz is asking, can you repeat the experimental thing? Let me tell you what is an experimental question. So an experimental question is a question which on which you are not scored. It is basically given for the purpose of understanding the difficulty level of the question, so that GMAT can use it in the tests which are going to be taken by other students in the coming days. Okay, so GMAT continuously gives experimental questions to all of you. Now, another doubt which might be occurring in your mind is, do I know which is the experimental question? No, GMAT won't tell you. Do you know where the experimental question will come? No, GMAT won't tell you that either. So it can be in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, anywhere. You don't know that. All we know is there are 8 scored questions in the first quarter, 7 in the second, 7 in the third, and 8 in the last quarter. Okay, that's how the ESR should be read. So the student made 4 mistakes in the first quarter. Okay, 1 mistake in the second quarter, no mistakes in the third quarter, and 3 mistakes in the last quarter. Okay, so all in all, the student just made 8 mistakes. Okay, and I want you to register his verbal score. His verbal score was 30, which is around 58 percentile. Okay, his verbal score was 30, which is around 58 percentile on the GMAT. Okay, I want you to register this data point. So I'll take another question. Divyanshu is asking, in which quarter do this experimental questions like? Divyanshu, GMAT doesn't reveal it, so we cannot be sure where the experimental questions are and which ones are the experimental questions. Okay, so keep this data point in mind, and I'm going to now show you another ESR report of another student. Okay, and the student on the right, I'm not gonna share his verbal score with you. I want you to look at his data, and I want you to tell me, make a guess about what could be his verbal score, the student on the right. So I'll just tell you how many mistakes this student did. So the student on the right made 2 mistakes in the first quarter, 2 in the second quarter, and 3 in the last quarter. So overall, the second student made a total of 7 mistakes. Okay, so there is a difference of just 1 mistake between the 2 students. I want you to talk about and think about it. Take your time if you want to, and tell me what was the verbal score of the second student. Okay, I have few responses. So I'll wait for a few more responses to come in. Sahil has a question. So there is no loss or gain if attempted questions, or if you attempted experimental questions. Yes, so they are not scored. So you don't stand to gain or lose from it. All right, so I have a lot of responses. A lot of you are telling me that the score will be around 36, 38, 39. A lot of you are talking about that range itself. A few of you are saying it can be as low as 35, and some of you mentioned it should be around the 40 mark. Okay. Good. So Ihab is a very interesting point. It depends on when the student got those first quarter questions wrong. That's a very, very interesting point, Ihab, and I'm going to come to that for sure. Okay. So the second student got a verbal score of 41. And yes, Samarth, the second ESR, this one on the right is my own ESR snapshot. So the second student, which is me in this case, got a verbal score of 41. Okay. And look at the percentile difference. The first student got a percentile of 58. The second student got a 93 percentile. Okay, and if you are thinking that what does this 11 points do? This 11 points could be the difference between a 680 and a 740 or a 750 as well. Okay, this is the importance of these 11 points. Think about it. One extra mistake, and you're losing 11 points on the GMAT. Okay, do you guys think that GMAT is actually really harsh? Please tell me if you guys think that GMAT is really harsh by looking at this data. Tell me, guys, do you think GMAT is really harsh? Quick yes, no. What do you think? Okay. Ihab says it's manipulative. All right, that's interesting. Most of you feel that GMAT is harsh. Natasha, Amit, Sarthak, Gonzalo, all of you think that GMAT is harsh. All right. So let me tell you guys, GMAT is, I won't say it is harsh. It is basically one of the most standardized tests, one of the most standardized adaptive tests. It's all about the algorithm. See, I'll now show you the accuracy chart of the students. Sorry, difficulty level chart of the students against and accuracy across the sections against the difficulty level. Okay, once you look at it, you will understand that how fair the GMAT actually is. Okay, so the students are the same. The left hand side is the difficulty chart of the first student and the right hand side is the difficulty chart of the second student. If you look at the difficulty level of the questions in the first and the second quarter, and more importantly the second quarter that the student one got right, okay, those questions are mostly easy and medium, between easy and medium. So it's an easy medium question. The moment the algorithm tries to give some hard questions, he is getting them wrong. You can see that on the chart as well. He got made 4 mistakes in the first quarter. And as one of you was saying, I believe it was Ihab. Yeah. So as I believe Ihab was talking about the same thing. The first student probably made most of those 4 mistakes in the first 4 or 5 questions itself. Okay. And that's why GMAT realized that probably the student doesn't have the capability of solving even the medium questions. So the questions that he got in the first and the second quarter were easy medium. So even if he gets it right, those are low value questions. Okay. Whereas if you look at the second student, if you look at the questions that he got right, which is in this case me, I don't like saying that again and again, so I'll refer it as a second student. So if you look at the average difficulty level of the questions that the second student got right, it was around medium to high. Okay, so what does it tell us? It basically tells us that the second student is much more skilled than the first student. Look at the difficulty level comparison next to each other. This is the difference between the skill level of the 2 students that I'm talking about. And that's why you see the difference between their scores. Okay. So what does this data tell us? This data simply tells us one simple thing, that you have to focus on skill and consider skill over accuracy. That's the most important part. It is not important to think just about accuracy on the GMAT. You have to think about the skill. Now, what is skill? What basically skill means? Skill means the ability to get a question of any particular difficulty level correct. Irrespective of whether it's an easy, medium, or a hard question, if you're skillful, you will get them right. That's the most important thing that you need to focus on. So what I'm going to do now is, for the next 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes, I'm going to help you understand how you can develop the right skill to master the GMAT. And then I'm going to go back to the algorithm and summarize my learnings through some more data points from quant and verbal, and I'm going to talk about the algorithm again. So I wanted to hold on to your questions around the algorithm for now. I'm going to talk about them. Right now, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to focus on skill. How should you develop skill and what does it require to develop the skills? Okay, so summarizing, if you see, based on the 2 data points that I talked about, the 2 case studies that I talked about. The first case study was me facing an RC passage, like as the 14th question and onwards. What did we learn from it? What we learned from it is, first thing you need to basically first thing you need to do is make sure that the algorithm serves you hard question. And if you look at the data points that I shared with these 2 students, the first 2 sets, if you don't do them well, okay, you will not be able to get the hard questions at all. So you need to do well on the easy, medium, and probably medium high questions as well. All right, so that is something which you need to focus on. So Ihab, your point is right. I will definitely talk about that again as a part of our test taking strategy. Okay, so accuracy on easy and medium questions is what makes the algorithm serves you hard question. And once you get the hard questions, you need to get them right. That's what I discussed in the first case study. If you don't get the first hard questions right, you won't score beyond the 700. And to get the hard questions right, you need to learn the right skills and you need to learn how to apply those skills. That is something that I'm going to talk about. But I'm going to take the questions related to the algorithm on the comments for one last time. Then I'll move to the skill part and we will come back to the algorithm again. So Vijay has a question. So are first 10 questions more important than others? Should I spend more time on them? So Abhijay, if you ask me, are the first 10 questions more important than others? I would not say yay or nay. It is definitely very, very important. If you don't do well on them, you won't get hard questions. So yes, they are very important. Are they the most important? Probably yes, because if you don't get hard questions, you cannot get them right. But again, they are not the only questions which are important. You need to get the other questions right as well. And please hold on to that. I'm not leaving you at this stage. I'm going to talk about exactly what should be your timing strategy, how should you pace your test, and everything in this webinar itself. Okay, so don't worry about that. I'm going to talk about it. Let me see if there are any other questions. So Eric, thank you so much. I'm happy that the webinar is helping you. At GMAT Wiz, we make sure that we try to help students learn the best things. All right. Okay. So Jamie has a question. If you can't answer any difficulty question within 2 minutes, the result from your 10 questions won't matter. It will eventually converge to your skill. Good point, Jamie. So I'm going to talk about that in a while. Good. So Rajiv, you had 13 mistakes, you scored 34. So again, it depends on where you made the mistakes. That's the whole point that I was talking about. It's not about the accuracy, it's about where you make those mistakes. I have seen cases where students made 9 mistakes and ended up with a V21. I had that ESR as well. I did not share here. Okay. So it's not about accuracy, it's about where you get those questions wrong. All right. So if you want, Rajiv, you want me to analyze your ESR, you can basically book a consultation call with me free of charge. I would request Abhijit if you can basically share the link for the consultation call. Then it will be great for the students. So I'm going to move away from these questions for the time being. I'm going to talk about the skill part, because I don't want to extend the session till long, and then we will go back to the algorithm again. And I'm more than happy to take any questions that you may have around the algorithm in the Q&A section. Okay, so to get the hard questions right, you need to build the right skills. Now, that's where most of the people struggle. Generally, when students learn, they do not really understand what are the most important stages of learning. Whenever you are learning any topic, there are 3 important stages that you should go through. The first stage is you should learn the concepts related to the topic. So when I say a topic, I mean, let's say prime numbers or modifiers or inference questions in CR, whatever. You need to first learn the concepts. What are the main concepts that are tested on the GMAT for that particular topic? That is stage 1. The second stage is you need to learn and master, and it's focus on the words that I have used here. I'm not saying learn a methodical approach. I'm saying mastering and methodical approach. It's very important that you master a methodical approach to solve those questions. Okay, you know the concepts, but how do you apply those concepts on a given question is something which most of the people falter at. Okay, and then comes the stage 3, where after you have learned the approach, you will practice questions on that topic to streamline the approach, to streamline your understanding of the concepts and get them right. So that's where the stage 3 comes. And if you follow these 3 stages as it is, you are bound to get a score of 700 plus. You are on target. You will always reach your goal. But the problem with students that I face most of the times is because they don't understand the importance of stage 2. They directly jump from stage 1 to stage 3. They learn concepts and they will go about solving lots of questions, tons of questions every day. Okay, wherever they can get hold of a question from it, they do it. I'm not saying solving questions is wrong, but the problem with this approach is if you start solving questions right away after you learn concepts, you will keep on probably repeating the same mistakes. You won't even understand why are you making those mistakes. And what will happen in the end is, even after putting a lot of effort, you will get stuck in the 600 and 650 zone. Okay, the reason I'm saying you will get stuck in this zone is that if you don't learn the approach, you won't falter on the easy questions. You will get them right. If you know the concepts, you will get the easy questions right. Even if you don't learn the approach, you will still get a good number of medium questions right. Okay, but you will struggle with the hard questions. I'm sure a lot of you get confused with last 2 choices in case of verbal a lot many times. probably have asked yourself this question: why does this happen with me? Why do I pick the last wrong choice always? That happens because the method that you are using is probably not methodical. The strategies are not great. You have not mastered them, and that's where approach becomes very important. Now, I'm sure I've talked a lot about approach, and a lot of you would be thinking, what does this word approach mean? What is this methodical approach that Piyush is talking about? So let me talk about that. What does approach basically means? What does application means? Okay, so I'm going to take a very simple example from Quant. So let's say I ask you to solve these two linear equations for x and y. Okay, again, we are slightly running short on time, so I'm not going to ask you to solve it here. I'm going to show you how most of the people will approach it. What they will do is they'll try to equate the coefficient of x by basically multiplying the second equation by 2. And then in step 2, what they will do is they will eliminate x simply by subtracting the two equations. From there, they will get the value of y, and then they will substitute y to get the value of x. Okay. So Pralay, I'm going to talk about how you can master the second stage. Don't worry about that. I'm going to it. I'm coming to it. But right now, I want you to understand what the second stage actually means. So if you see, if you follow this 3-step approach for solving a linear equation, come what may, like whatever is the difficulty level of the question, you will always get to the right answer if you follow the same approach all the time for these kind of questions. So this is something that we have learned probably in school. We have internalized over a period of time. And if you use this approach, you always get it right. Now, Quant, generally people do more methodically than verbal. Again, it depends on student to student, but that's a general thing that I have seen. But when it comes to verbal, people do not really think a lot about the approach. They do not think a lot about the approach. They directly jump to shortcuts because they believe that they have to solve questions under 2 minutes. That's the most important skill that they need to develop. Okay. So what is the most common approach that people follow for RC? Again, this is something that I have also done as a student, and I'm going to talk about the most popular approaches, and I want you to tell me which approach do you follow. Okay. The most popular approaches, one of them is read the first and the last line of every paragraph and jump directly to the questions. So try to read the first line, try to read the last line of every paragraph. You will get a gist of it and directly jump to the questions and see like which particular paragraph is it related to, and only read that paragraph if needed for that question. That's one approach that students follow. Second approach, and probably the most common of them, which I also followed for quite some time, is to read the passage quickly in 2 minutes. Skim through the passage. Just take a mental note of what lies where. Okay, what is the information? Where is it lying in the passage? And refer back to the passage for every single question. That's the second approach that students follow. Okay, and the third approach is you just read the question first, so you know what you are looking for, and then basically go and refer to the passage. Okay, so I want you guys to tell me, take a minute if you need, read through these approaches and tell me which approach is the one that you follow. Very quickly, which approach is the one that you follow? Okay, I'll wait for a few comments. Which is the approach that you follow for RC today? Okay, so as I expected, most of you say approach 2. All right. Yep. That's in fact the most common approach. And thank you so much for responding here. And Abhijay, yes. So that's actually all of these approaches. None of these approaches actually work. And I'm happy if you're not following any of these approaches. All these approaches are based on one single thing. That is, you have to solve questions quickly. And let me tell you why approach 2 doesn't work. See, on GMAT, 80 to 85% questions are inferential in nature. When I say inferential in nature, I mean either they are based on inference, main point, organization of the passage, and so on and so forth. If you are just following the second approach and you are just taking a mental note of what lies where, you are making multiple mistakes. Number one, you are not reading between the lines. You are not drawing inferences as you are reading. If you do not draw inferences as you are reading, you will probably not be able to draw the inferences when you are going to the questions. Okay, and you are bound to get stuck with two close choices in the end. That's the root cause. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you are wasting a lot of time on RCs, because even if you spend just 2 minutes on the passage, you probably feel that you have saved time. But what you don't realize is, for every question you have to refer back to the passage. So for every question you are spending 2 minutes. Okay, and there are 4 questions in a passage. You're probably spending 10 minutes overall. Okay, so the whole objective of saving time is basically lost. You haven't achieved it, and you haven't achieved a high accuracy either. So approach 2 doesn't work. I have followed that as a student for a long time. I always struggled with my accuracy. What I realized later was what is most important on RC is to understand the passage, to draw the right inferences. Okay, and I'm going to I'm going to take a very simple example. Let's say I tried to use shortcuts in the question that I solved earlier on quant. I could have solved it in another way. I could have probably tried putting x as 1. Okay, and I would have not got any particular set of values for y which satisfy both the equations. Similarly, I could have then tried putting x as 2. It is still not coming out as the right answer. Okay, now I'm sure some of you might be thinking, why am I trying to do it? I'm just trying to show you, if I apply shortcuts and don't follow the right methods in quant, how foolish it sounds. Okay, so in this case I am not getting the answer, and I might get the answer, but it is probably not the best effort or the best approach. So it's much better to solve questions using methodical approach. It will lead to better accuracy, and it will lead to faster output as well. Okay, initially it might take you some time to summarize every paragraph. So Sanjeevni, that's very important point that you're making. It might take you to learn that approach. It might take you some time to learn that approach. But once you have done that really well, it will help you to get good results. So Rajiv, I'm going to talk about what is the right approach for DS, SC a little bit. I'm not going to explain it, but I'm going to mention them. Don't worry about that. I've thought of all the questions that can come in your mind. So I have some slides. I'm going to talk about it. Okay. So what you should do for RC is, and this is something that we at GMAT Wiz are really very particular about. We make sure that we teach it as an important part of our course. We teach you how to read in an involved and evolved manner. You have to place yourselves in the shoes of the author. You have to think like the author. Okay, you have to walk the walk, you have to talk the talk of the author. You have to understand the viewpoint. So whenever you're reading a passage, as you're reading it, you have to consciously break it into smaller chunks and try and understand the meaning of each part. Okay, then for every subsequent sentence, you should keep relating back to the previous sentence by asking yourself questions such as, why has the author brought this particular point of view? What is he trying to do over here? What is the author's take on it? Whether he's in favor of it, against it? Think of all these things, and to do that, you look at the transition words and conjunctions. They will give you a clue in terms of how the information is flowing through the passage. Okay, and finally you should summarize whatever you have learned. You have to summarize each paragraph. You have to summarize the entire passage. If you understand the inferences, if you understand and read between the lines, you will not face any challenges in RC passages. Okay, so that is the most important approach that you should follow. Okay, now I have some questions. Vani and Siddharth is asking, how much time do we need to spend on reading the passage? Good question, guys. I'm going to talk about that. See, initially, when you follow this approach, this definitely looks very, very tedious. Okay, it's a very tedious process, very lengthy process. Initially, you will spend maybe 6 minutes on an easy passage, maybe 10 minutes on a difficult one as well, just to read the passage, maybe 12 minutes on answering all the questions. So it depends from person to person, but you will take a lot of time initially to get used to this approach. Okay, but does that mean this approach doesn't work? Not really. This approach is the most effective approach. Initially, you will take more time to solve questions using this, but as you practice 40 or 50 passages using this approach, you will see that time will automatically fall in place. You will be taking no more than 2 minutes or maybe 1.8 minutes on an average for solving each question. Okay, that's including the time that you read the passage for. And that's how you learn any new skill. Like when you tried to drive the car for the first time, you had to think about the gearbox, you had to think about the clutch, the accelerator, the side mirrors, the back mirror, the steering, the car in the front, all at the same time. It was a very difficult task initially. It would have taken you some amount of time to get used to it. But now probably you can talk to your friend while driving. Okay, it has become a second habit, a second nature to you. So any skill in the beginning will take you some time to learn, and that's where you should not basically stop yourself from learning the skill. Not worry about timing initially. You should worry about timing later on. Initially, you should focus on learning the method. Okay, so let me quickly tell you what should be your typical learning curve. So as I was telling even earlier, you should learn concepts. And most of the people, after learning concept, they just move to practicing questions. Okay, but what we at GMAT Wiz really believe in is that you should do the second step in between, which is to learn application. Now, there was an important question. Someone was asking, how do I learn the application? How do I master this method? Okay, and that is something which we found was missing in most of the courses, or like the courses which were there in the industry. So we came up with a new approach. What we did was, or every topic that you learn, we create 3 steps of learning. The first step is learning concepts, where you learn the concepts using video lessons. So you go through video lessons to learn the concepts, very detailed lessons, and then you basically learn the application through our specially designed concept booster files. So what is a concept booster file? We make sure that we have researched on every single type of a question which comes on the GMAT from a topic. We have given 1 question of each type in the concept boosters, and we help you learn the method. Okay, so I see a lot of questions whether you should take notes, and also we have told you exactly what you should do while reading the passage, while solving a CR question, while solving a DS question. We have detailed solutions. We teach you the approach using the concept boosters, and then in the end, we take you to the third stage of taking you through the quizzes, where you practice questions and see how well you have performed. So this is the typical learning curve that a student should follow. Okay, and the right method to solve questions are, for sentence correction, you should follow meaning-based approach. Again, this is something which is a discussion in itself, so I'm not going into the depth of each of the approaches. I'm just going to tell you what is the best approach. And then basically, if you want to know about it, you can always shoot a mail to me at piyush@gmatwiz.com. I will keep you apprised of the webinars that happen regularly on these things. So we have different webinars for individual topics, so you can learn those approaches there. Then for CR, you should follow the pre-thinking approach. For RC, you should follow involved and evolved reading. For DS, someone was asking for DS, you should follow the approach of drawing inferences from the question stem first. Okay, that's a 3-step process as well, but the first step is the most crucial one. And for PS, we have a 3-step process that we teach as well. Okay, so these are the right approaches that one should follow to solve questions. Okay, so I hope now all of you guys are clear with what I meant by approach and how you should develop the right approach, at least how you should do it. Like, what are the right resources? That's a separate thing, but at least you got an idea about how you should follow the various stages. Okay, so Siddharth has a question. Do each of the sections involve 3 stages at GMAT Wiz? Yes, Siddharth, every topic, not the section, every topic within each of these sections, like SC, every single topic involves this 3 stages. Okay, that is something that we have made sure. Okay, I'll take a few more questions. Then I'm going to move to the test taking strategy again. Do you make notes simultaneously when reading the RC? Divyanshu, not really. See, what is more important is you constantly keep on processing the information in your mind and trying to read between the lines. You should write notes when you think that you have understood a very important point, that you feel it is important, and you should take notes. Initially, you might need to take more notes for sure when you're learning it, but later on it will reduce automatically. Okay, so I am seeing a lot of questions around basically RC. Again, this is not a RC webinar, so I'm not going to answer them. If you have those questions, please mail it to me. I'll be more than happy to direct you around that. So I'll talk about the time management strategy now. Okay, so let me go to that part. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to take you through the test taking strategy completely, but even before that, like, let us take a look at how basically the algorithm works for quant. Okay, and then this is also true to an extent for verbal. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to share some more ESR reports with you, and I'm going to talk about very similar ESR reports, show you similar ESR reports to draw certain simple inferences. So in this ESR report, I'm sharing basically the snapshot of 2 students for the quant section. I wanted to look at this report and tell me what is different in these 2 ESR reports. And let me tell you, in quant, there are 7 questions in each section. So there are 7 questions in each section. Okay, so look at these 2 ESR reports and tell me what is the difference in these 2 ESR reports. So someone is asking for my email ID. So my email ID is very simple, guys. It is piyush@gmatwiz.com. Okay, I'll request Abhijit to please share it as well over here. So I'm someone wants to write to me, you can always do that. Connect with me. Okay. Yeah. So that's my email ID. But tell me, guys, what is the difference according to you in these two ESR reports? Okay. Nagarajan says the second guy is you. Okay, I think you have got used to it now. So yeah, the second ESR report is mine. So the second guy got all the first quarter questions right. That's the basic difference. So that's the only difference that exists between the two students. The first student, let me actually go back to the slide again. Yeah, so the first student made one mistake in the first quarter, and the second student did not make any mistakes in the first quarter. The rest of it is same. Okay, the rest of it is exactly the same. But if you see the difference between the quant scores, it's a 48 versus a 50. Just 2 points, right? But these 2 points can actually lead to an overall difference of 10 to 20 points. Okay, that is something which is a huge difference. It can be the difference between you getting a scholarship and not getting a scholarship as well. Okay, so obviously the first student made mistakes in the first quarter. So Abhijay, you are right. The first student made some of the, I won't say easy questions wrong. He could have made easy ones wrong or medium ones wrong, but obviously he was not able to get that all the first 7 questions right completely. Okay, and that's why GMAT decreased the difficulty level of the subsequent questions. And even if he was getting them right, he did not score as high. So what does it tell me? The inference that we draw from this is the first 10 to 15 questions are very, very important. Okay, so very, very important. Again, Sushila has a very interesting question. How do I make sure that we have not done a mistake in DS? Some checkup strategy. Very, very close, guys. Very, very close, Sushila. I'm going to talk about that in a while. Just wait for some moments. I am going to talk about the quant part, and I'm going to talk about that strategy. Arindam, why do you say there are only 7 questions in each section? Good point, Arindam. If you look at the percentage values which are given and use mathematics, that 71% is actually 71.5, 86 is 85.71. It's rounded off basically. All these numbers are only possible if you have a base of 7, okay, on the bottom. Okay, so it's 6 out of 7, 71 is 5 out of 7, 51 is 4 out of 7. That's how we understand that there are 7 questions in each section, and that's how you can understand it in verbal as well. Okay, so that's the approach. Like in PS, can we recheck to confirm? In DS, is there any technique? I'll talk about that. Sahil, if you are stuck at 49, you want to improve further, that's a different discussion. I'm going to talk a little bit here, but if you want, you can basically get in touch with me. I'll help you out with that. Okay, so Akila, if you want to join the free trial of GMAT Wiz, you can actually go to our website. The free trial is available there. You can check it out over there. Okay, so Arindam, yes, there are 28 scored questions and 3 experimental questions on quant as well. So what did we understand from this? What we understood from this is you need to get the first quarter completely right and as high as possible in the second quarter. I generally say that your approach in quant should be to get the first 15 questions right. Come what may, don't make any mistake in the first 15 questions. Now, what should we do later? What is the importance of the last 15 questions? Let's look at 3 ESRs now. Instead of 2, let's look at 3 ESRs. Okay, this is the ESR that you have already seen. Look at the accuracy of the student in the last 2 quarters. Okay, if you look at the accuracy, overall accuracy, it is somewhere around 66%. Okay, so this student got 2 out of every 3 questions right. Let's look at the accuracy of the next student. This student, again, this is a different ESR, not the same that you saw earlier. So this guy has also got a 41. But if you look at his performance in the last 2 quarters, he got a 50% score over here. Okay, and I can tell you one more thing. See, the difference between these 2 ESRs is this ESR it has a 86% in the second one. This person has a 71 in the second one. Okay, if they had exactly the same scores, exactly, for example, if this guy could have got 86 in the second quarter, he could have ended up with a 49 as well. Okay, but again, I did not get an ESR which had this same data point, so I'm just telling you verbally over here. But if you look at the second student, he got 50% of the last 15 questions right. Let's look at the third student. Okay, what about this student? If you look at his accuracy is roughly 35% in the last 2 quarters. Okay, so the third student is getting 1 out of every 3 questions right. But now look at the scores of these 3 students. Okay, and if you want, I can just write it over here for you. I'm talking about the last 15 questions, accuracy in the last 15 questions. 66% translates to a 50, Q50. Let me write. That will make it easy for you guys to understand. Q50. Okay, 50%. And if I assume everything else was same, it could be between 48 to 49. And if it was 35%, it could basically mean anywhere between 47 to 48. Okay, so what do we infer from this? What we infer from this is, if and only if you manage to get the first 15 questions right, okay, and let me tell you this is not going to happen on the day of the test. You have to be skilled enough to get the first 15 questions right. To be skilled enough to get the first 15 questions right, you need to learn the right approach. And that's why I talked about that approach part even before I come to this. Okay, so if you get the first 15 questions right, even with a 66% accuracy in the last 15 questions, you can still get a Q50. With a 50% accuracy in the last 15 questions, you can still get a 48 or a 49. Even with a 35% accuracy in the last 15 questions, you can still get a 47 to a 48. Okay, what does this tell us? It tells us that the first 15 questions are very, very critical. Okay, and by no means I mean to say that you should ignore the last 15. Don't think of it that way. In quant, all the questions are important, but it's very important that you don't make any mistake in the first 15 questions. So I'm going to summarize the lesson for the test taking strategy for quant. Now, this is a strategy which is true for someone who is who's targeting 47 plus on the GMAT. EHAB, it is different for verbal. I'm going to talk about that. Don't worry. So Nagarajan says, can you still get 49 or above getting a few questions wrong in the first 2 quarters? Nagarajan, it is possible. Again, when you say a few questions wrong, what do you mean by a few? If it is more than 2 or 3, it's very difficult to get a 49. You'll have to get everything right probably later on. Okay, so it gets slightly tough. First 15 questions is generally, getting to the first 15 is slightly easier in my opinion. So the strategy for quant test taking is simple. You need to make sure that you get the first 15 questions right. Now, how do you get them right? Okay, obviously you have to learn the approach first. You have to make sure you know the approach. But the most important thing which students don't understand is they try to save time in the first 15 questions. They think that since the questions are easy, they can save time for the later questions. But what they don't realize is, if you make mistakes in these first 15 questions, you will actually struggle in the last ones. Okay, even if you do well and you make mistakes in the first 15, you will still not get a very high score. So that's something which I wanted you to understand. Okay, now what else is required to get the first 15 questions right? Okay, Aniket, please hold on to that thought. I'm going to talk about verbal as well on the same slide, so don't worry. So what else you need to get done to get the first 15 questions right? You need to make sure that for every single topic in quant, every single topic, you get easy, medium, and to an extent medium and high questions right as well. So when you're learning, even if you don't get the hard questions right for some of the topics, you should have the capability of solving the easy, medium, and medium high questions from that topic really well. Okay, for example, even today, if you give me a hard question in geometry, especially that is based on triangles, I might falter at it. I'm not a perfect man, and I accept that. I might falter at it. But if you give me an easy, medium, or medium high question from any given topic in quant, I won't struggle with it. That is for sure. Okay, I might as well know 2 or 3 different methods of solving it. Okay, and and in fact, on the GMAT date, I almost double checked or sometimes triple checked my answer, especially in the DS questions. And someone was asking about DS questions, especially in the DS questions which looked simple or easy. I could have solved it in 20 seconds and moved on, but I still spent 1 minute 10 seconds or 15 seconds, sometimes 1 minute 30 seconds as well. Okay, to make sure that I'm marking it right. Okay, that's something that I did. Second thing which I want you to do is try to maintain a decent accuracy in third quarter. Okay, your job is done in the first 15, not true. Your job is half done in the first 15. It's very important that you get them right, but after that, still try to maintain a decent accuracy in the third quarter as high as possible. And then you can be selective if you're short on time. Again, if you are short on time, then only you should be selective in the third quarter, fourth quarter. Okay, that should be your approach. Now, Nagarajan has a question. What should be the maximum time to be at the 16th question? So, Nagarajan, I don't have an exact answer. It depends from person to person, honestly. But I feel that given that the first 15 questions are much more easier than the last 15 or 16 questions, I would say you should be somewhere at the halfway mark. Okay, so in terms of timing as well. So you should have at least around 31 or 31 to 34 minutes on the clock left. 30 to 34 minutes roughly. Okay, but depends on an individual. If you are not that skilled, you might as well take slightly more time, but get the first 15 questions right. I'm not taking extreme cases, but I know of cases where students have not done anything correct, not solved any question correct on the last quarter and still ended up with probably a 45 or 46 on quant. Okay, again, I don't have the ESR, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. But if your strategy is 47 plus, and this is something which most of the people target, that is what you should focus on. You should try to get the first 15 questions right and then maintain a decent accuracy in the rest of them. Okay, so TR Narayanan, if you just joined, I would request you to please look at the recording of the webinar, which will be basically live on YouTube after this session is over, because we are almost at the last part of the webinar. Okay, so a quarter has 7 to 8 questions depending on where it is. All right, so that's for quant. And Dexter, I'm going to talk about your question. It is also there on the slide, so don't worry about it. I have got you covered, so I'm going to talk about that. What about verbal? Okay, so now this strategy, what I'm going to talk about, is applicable for people who are targeting up to a score of 42. If you're targeting more than 42, then your strategy is similar to that of quant. Basically, if you're targeting a very, very high score in a section, you cannot make a lot of mistakes even in the last quarter. You should try to maintain as high accuracy as possible. But if you're targeting up to a 42, which is generally a combination of 47 plus and 40 up to 42 is generally good enough to score a 700, 710, 720 plus. Okay, so if you're targeting up to a 42 in verbal, I recommend you to focus on the first 26 questions. Those questions matter the most. Okay, nothing else matters more than it. Obviously, the starting ones matter more, and then also it is important to get the other ones right. First 26 questions are the most important. Okay, when you are doing them, give these questions their due time as it is required. Okay, I am telling you this, don't rush through the questions. It is very important that you give their give the due time to the questions. If it is a very easy question, don't rush through it. Give it due time. I'm not asking you to give more time. Okay, I'm not asking you to spend 2.5 minutes on an easy question. An easy question probably needs 1 minute 30 seconds at max, or maybe 1 minute 40 seconds. So you give its due time. For example, a hard question, on the other hand, might take you 2 minutes 10 seconds, 2 minutes 15 seconds, sometimes 2 minutes 30 seconds as well. Okay, but give its due time to the hard question. It is a hard question for a reason. Okay, so what do you do if you have no time left? Good question. If you have no time left, be selective in the last quarter. Okay, you think of it this way: if you're spending 65 minutes on 36 questions, you have 1.8 minutes per question. But what if you're spending 55 minutes on 26 questions? You have more than 2 minutes per question. Okay, so you can definitely be selective in the last quarter. Be selective there, and you can still do well. If you go back and look at my ESR report, okay, I'm not going to that slide again because it will take a lot of time to go there. But my accuracy in the first quarter and the second quarter was around 75%. It was not 100%. Okay, I got everything right in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, I got 62%. Even then, my score was verbal 41. Think of it. If I could have got those few questions right in the first 2 quarters as well, it would have cost 43, 44 as well. Okay, so it is very important that you focus on the first 26 questions. Okay, Nagarajan, another question. What do you do when you are stuck on a question for 3 minutes or more? See, if you're not getting a question even after solving 3 minutes, spending 3 minutes. In fact, Nagarajan, generally, if you're spending 3 minutes, even before you reach to 3 minutes, you will understand that you're not able to make any sense out of it. It is good to guess it and move ahead. Okay, you should not spend too much time on a question. That's why I'm saying you should give every question its due time, not more, not less. Okay, not too much more or too much less. Okay, obviously 10-15% buffer should be there. Okay, so what is the other things? So obviously these factors are important, but what else you need to keep in mind? Then I'm going to answer some of the questions which a lot of people asked here. First thing, you should not make consecutive mistakes. Okay, so even in the last quarter, if you are being selective, try not to make consecutive mistakes. Try not to basically like skip 2 or 3 questions back to back. Try to basically alternate, or maybe skip 2, but not skip 3 of them. So try to not make consecutive mistakes as much as possible. Okay, that's very, very important. So Ihab has another question. In verbal, I once started with 3 RCs back to back at the start of the exam. Is that normal? So Ihab, you don't have control over which question will be the first question. You might as well get a CR, RC, or SC question. In fact, those 36 questions that come on verbal, they may not be equally split on SC, CR, and RC. You might have more questions from RC, and in fact, a lot of people get more questions from RC. So all of that is luck. What you can do is to come basically fight that bad luck that might go your way. Is basically you should be prepared for RCs to get to actually do well on RCs. You should be prepared with the involved and evolved reading approach to do well over there. Okay, that's the main thing. Arindam, I have shared some verbal ESRs earlier during this webinar. If you want to get the copy of this webinar, you can always write to me at piyush@gmatwiz.com, or you can go through this webinar once again. I'm more than happy to share the PDF on the email. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing that you should keep in mind is you should never leave questions unattempted on the GMAT. Okay, it's penalized heavily on the GMAT. You should never leave things unattempted. If you are less on time, you should mark them randomly. So sometimes students end up with, let's say, 1 minute and there are 3 questions left. They do not attempt the questions. Don't do that. Randomly mark the questions, but don't leave them unattempted at all. That's the second thing. Third thing, all these strategies should be practiced on a few mocks beforehand. You should not practice these strategies on the test day directly. Okay, so remember, it's very important that you practice the strategies and make sure that they work for you. It worked for me, it works for students. But will it work for you? Probably yes. But it is important that you practice it. If it doesn't work for you, leave it. But make sure you're doing a few mocks with the strategies. Okay, so that's mostly about what I wanted to discuss in the test taking strategy. I hope most of you are clear with the approach that I mentioned. I'm opening the webinar now to the Q&A. Please feel free to post your questions here. I'm more than happy to take them up. If you want to register for a free trial of GMAT Wiz, you can do that by going to our website. I'll request Abhijit to share the link again on the comments if someone wants to register. We teach you the application-driven methodology in the course in very much details, and you can get in touch with me. My WhatsApp number is listed here, my email ID is listed here. So let me take up the questions now. Okay, Siddharth is asking, what is the penalty for leaving few set of questions not attempted? Siddharth, difficult to tell the exact penalty, but think of it this way, that if you leave questions unattempted, your score in a section can go down by 2 to 3 points if you're leaving, let's say, 3 or 4 questions unattempted, or maybe 3 questions. I don't know the exact thing, but that's how I will project it. So don't leave anything unattempted. That's the most important thing. Okay, Sahil, I'm glad that you liked the session. Thank you, Minhas. Thank you, Arindam and Dexter. Please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. I'll be more than happy to answer. Shubhadeep says, how bad is it to not complete the test on time? How would the algorithm penalize? Okay, so see, if you're not, when you say not completing the test, if you mean leaving questions unattempted, it is bad. So don't leave questions unattempted. That is the most important thing. Okay. Divyanshu says, for the accuracy in last quarter as well, under no conditions should we guess 4 questions in a row. I won't recommend it. See, should not guess a lot of questions back to back. Even in the last quarter, but let's say you fall in that situation and you have no other choice, then you have to go for it. That's a different thing, but try not to be in that situation. Okay, Ihab says that does GMAT know you are guessing if you guess them in less than 3 seconds? Good question, Ihab. And as I said, GMAT never releases this data, so it's very difficult for me to answer that, whether they look at whether you're guessing or not. So very difficult for me to answer that. Generally, like I don't think they will do that, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's how I would put it. Okay, any other questions? How much minimum score is decent we should get in IR and AW? 50% is decent. So Sushil, AW, I think you should try and get something about above 4.5, because 4.5 is generally the average in AWA. And for IR, I would recommend targeting a 6 or more. Okay, 6 is even fine. Okay. Akila is asking, what is the average time for each question in quant and each question in verbal? So average time in 2 minutes is 2 minutes in quant and 1.8 minutes in verbal, Akila. Aniket, is there a session on RC? Yes, we will be organizing a session on RC maybe in the next couple of weeks. Feel free to write to me to be included in our mailing list. I'll add your email ID to our mailing list, and you will receive the notifications for the webinar that we conduct at GMAT Wiz. Okay, Nikita, can you share some insights on IR? Not really a session on IR, Nikita. I won't be able to talk a lot about it. But in short, if you are good at quant and you can read data well, you should be doing fairly good on IR. So just a little bit of practice will help. TR Narayanan, prep materials recommended. So Narayan, I would say look at GMAT Wiz. It is one of the most advanced and effective course. What we have done is we have made sure that we have a one-stop solution for even quant and verbal, every single thing. We teach you how to solve questions in a very high level of detail. And the best part about the platform is it is AI driven. So when you study on our platform, the AI will automatically create a study plan for you, which is adaptive, which changes every week. And the course is dynamic, unlike other courses which are static. So it's not the same course which is served to every user. You will get a different course and you will get real-time improvement modules. So look out for GMAT Wiz on the website. You can check out our free trial. Okay, I'll take a few more questions. GMAT is said to omit one highest answered question and one least answered question. Does that impact your score? Nagarajan, I'm not really sure about that part. So I cannot vouch for it. So I'm not really sure about that part. Okay. Let's see. So let me see a few more questions. How much time one should spend on RC? So Tejas, again, if you're asking how much time should you spend when you're learning RCs, probably in the learning phase, you should not time yourself. That's one important tip I tell my students. When you're learning, you should focus on learning the approach and not worry about the timing at all. When you are in the exam, like last phase of your preparation, ideally for reading a RC, which is easy, you should spend three minutes or maximum 4. For medium passages, 4 to 5 minutes, maximum 5 again. And for tough passages, 5 to 6 minutes. That's the last stage. But in the beginning, you should try to focus more on the learning part, the approach part, and not the timing part. Okay. How to recheck DS, whether it is done correctly or not incorrectly from previous questions. Okay, Sushil, good point. See, in quant, if you do something wrong in the first go, it is very difficult for you to realize that later on. So in my thought process there is, you should try to go slow. Don't go fast. Okay, try to go slow. Think about all the cases. In DS, mostly students miss out on cases. And one of the biggest reasons they do that is they do not really draw inferences from the question stem. If you don't spend time on the question stem and understand what is that you really need to answer the question, you will face challenges. For example, if the question says is x square greater than x cube, which is greater than, let's say, x, what does it translate to? What is it really asking you? It is asking you something else. Sometimes they make it convoluted and give it to you in a different language. Okay. The question I have, Nagar, let's see. Thanks for the session, Siddharth. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you liked it. Nagarajan, when you are taking the next session here, what will be it on? It is, as Abhijit mentioned, it is going to be on 700 level quant questions, solving 700 level quant questions in 2 minutes. But we are also organizing some other webinars in the meantime on our website. So you can always get in touch with me and I'll add you to the mailing list. Okay. Do you advise on taking GMAT during COVID now that exams at homes are available? So Ihab, I always suggest that you should take the GMAT when you are ready to take the GMAT. Okay, that's the best advice. That's the single most advice I will give you. Okay, let's see if there is any other question. Kranti says, "Can you have a session for DS?" Sure, I'll take that into account. We do have webinars which are focused a lot on DS, not solely on DS, but a lot on DS. So write to me. I will register you for them. Okay, I don't see any other question. Manuel has a question. For the verbal part, is the first 15 questions critical? Definitely, Manuel, it is very important. You have to get high accuracy on the first 15 questions. Okay, so in verbal, if you're targeting up to a 42, you should focus on the first 26 questions. That's the most important thing that I believe in. All right, so I don't think there are any other questions. I've kind of answered all the questions which are there. I'll wait for a couple of more minutes. If more questions pop up, I'll answer them. Otherwise, you can reach out to me on my email ID or my phone number later on as well. Okay. Okay. Ihab, okay, so I got your question now. So you're asking whether you should take the test at home or so again, this is something which will depend a lot on the environment at home. So if you feel that you have a quiet place where you can focus on the test and you can do it well, then you can always do it. Some people like taking tests at home than a CREST center, which is an alien environment for them. Okay, so again, it depends on how comfortable you are. For example, the day the a day or 2 days before the GMAT date, I took a mock test from my home in a very noisy environment. I made sure that there was a lot of noise around, and I took a mock test just to be mentally prepared for that kind of a scenario too. However, the test center was really quite one of the best centers that I have seen, but I made sure that I do practice at home. Okay, so there is another, I was talking about an offer. I'll just tell you that again. So if you haven't subscribed to the GMAT Club YouTube channel, GMAT Club is actually offering a 7-day access to GMAT Club tests free of charge if you subscribe to the channel. So please do that if you have not done it already. Okay, let me see. Any other questions? Yeah, Vanny has a question. Do you know anything about the home exams? So Vanny, as far as I know, GMAT was supposed to give more information around it, but the information is yet to come. So it is going to happen probably from the mid of April, but they haven't diverged more information on it. All we know is it's going to be slightly shorter. AWA is not going to be there. The test fee is going to be slightly less, but more information is still to come. Okay, Omar is asking, advice for first time GMAT students. Okay, good point. So 3 advices. Number 1, do not time yourself when you're learning the approach. First advice. Second advice, learn from a resource which is structured, methodical, and makes your job easy so that you are focusing on learning and not collecting material. That's the second advice. Third advice, make sure you learn the basic topics really well, have a strong grasp over them before you move to the advanced ones. Because I've seen students moving to advanced topics even when they do not have a very strong understanding of the basic questions. Okay, so that's something which is a very bad thing to do. So make sure you focus on these things. So these are just 3 tips. You can always get in touch with me to discuss more about your strategies and other things. Okay, anything else? Nagarajan is asking, what will be the impact of COVID-19 on score percentiles, assuming less people will be taking the test? I don't think it is going to impact much, Nagarajan. Percentiles are standardized over a period, much longer period, so it is not going to have any noticeable impact. Ihab is asking, I took the GMAT 2 times before. Is it true you're allowed only to take it 8 times? Yes, Ihab, you can take the GMAT 5 times in a year and 8 times in your lifetime. And between 2 attempts, there should be a minimum gap of 15 days. That's the rule. Okay. Kranti, for part-time MBA in Kellogg, what is the score required? It depends on a lot of factors about your profile. You can get in touch with me. I would like to discuss it, and I can basically help you understand what kind of a score you are looking at. All right, so good. I think there are no more questions, and we are already 8 to 10 minutes behind schedule. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending this webinar. My contact details are there on this slide. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you with any kind of questions around your MBA admissions or GMAT preparation or strategy. I like analyzing data. I like looking at the right strategies, and that's something which I love to do. And I think that I can help you out with those things. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And see you next time. Bye-bye.